Welcome back to another episode of Plan Voodoo. I'm your host Derek, and today I'll be doing the pod solo. So the plans have changed. I'll just be recapping what went down in episode 6. So let's get straight to it. So episode 6 for Australian Survivor, Heroes vs. Villains, starts off with Jerry walking into the villains camp. It was quite funny. He says Simon, and Simon's like Sam. I think deep down, Simon was hoping if anyone was to show up for the villains camp, I guess it would be Sam. Is from what I took from it, but it ended up being Jerry. But it was quite funny, and we see a bit of an ordeal happening, in which everyone wakes up. George asks to sleep between Simon and Jerry. It's a fight. They both realize, at least at that time, that it's probably 4v4 based on the tribe alignment, and Jerry's could be the swing vote to make it so that they have majority. So that's pretty much what we see for most of the episode, and it's the battle for Jerry, as I would call it. So we go back to the heroes camp. Sharni, the actress, is quite upset that Jerry is now on the villains. I anticipate this being a thing moving forward. Obviously, Jerry survived. I believe that was 2 days. Well, I'll get to it. It's spoilers. But yeah, he survived the tribal council. So I anticipate him going back to the villains tribe now, or the heroes tribe, sorry. But yeah, I think there's a clear division now in the heroes tribe. They made it clear that Jerry's not wanted by Sam's words, and their tribal council had made note of that, saying, if we lose them, we lose them, essentially. That's me paraphrasing. That wasn't his words. But yeah, we'll see what happens with the heroes tribe. Maybe a swap comes. Jerry, at least in my mind, from what I gathered in the episode, he knows that the heroes viewed him as expendable. I love that, because having that knowledge maybe we see him work more with the villains moving forward. I would love to see that, to be honest. Yeah, we pretty much see the whole thing going down with Jerry and camp life early on, with between Simon and George vying for getting to know him, creating a personal connection and such like that. And then we get to the challenge, in which I want to make note of what went down at the challenge, because a few big things went down with George specifically. So before they even played in the advantage or the reward challenge, George, they pretty much are talking about why Jerry was voted out, and Matt did, and George questioned Matt why Jerry was voted out. I think George is very smart. I think he is catching on to that Jerry might be returning to the Heroes tribe. We didn't get wind of that from him in a confessional, but he was choosing his words quite carefully, and I don't think Matt's response was the best to indicate that wasn't the case. But we'll see. Yeah, it was just an interesting thing that I noticed in the episode. Also, we've been seeing it happen time and time again. George and Haley, the king and the queen, are working together. Yes, the king and the queen, who finished 1 and 2 in Australian Survivor, Brains vs. Bronze, and yeah, they're the biggest targets out there on each beach, and they're making sure that each other is staying safe. So during the challenge, George and Haley went head to head, in which you had to swat off the other person's idol that they were holding before yours hit the ground. And after, like very quickly after their challenge or their duel ended between them, George leaned into Haley and asked if he should work with Jerry during the challenge, and she said yes. Now, like I said, this is not the only time we've seen George and Haley work together, I guess, this season. George gave Haley advice on where to look for a hidden immunity idol in the big roots of a big tree. So yeah, that's something to look forward to moving forward. I'm honestly shocked. We're 6 episodes in now, and George and Haley have survived every single vote. That's quite amazing, to be honest, because they're some of the biggest targets out there. But on that same note, I've mentioned, for the most part, these how these seasons play out when you have returning players and new players is the returning players dominate. And we are seeing more often than not new players being voted out in this season of Survivor. Actually, every single vote, now that I think about it, a new player has been voted out. I mean, Jerry was voted to a new tribe. But yeah, every single vote we've seen to date, a new player has been voted out. That's Plan Voodoo. We called that. We kind of anticipated that coming, but honestly shocked that George and Haley are still there. To be honest, so the heroes win reward, and what I want to note about the reward is, so I don't think I've seen family visits on Australian Survivor. I don't think that's a thing. However, they do have rewards where they receive photos of their loved ones and they can get to hang them up around camp. I do really enjoy that because for US Survivor, there has not been any loved one visits since the pandemic for the last several seasons. And it's just a cool little thing to see around camp. We get to know the castaways a little more. It's an easy end for Survivor to give a backstory about these players because they're not only players, but they're people. And yeah, it's very touching. So I'd love for US Survivor to incorporate photos at camp as a reward moving forward. I'd love to see that. So moving on, not much else happens. Obviously, we see the them vying for Jerry between Simon and George. George kind of lets Jerry know that Haley told him to work with him at the challenge. Yeah, that's good on George's part, I guess. Maybe Jerry believes it, maybe he doesn't. But I don't really want to talk about what happened the rest of the way at camp. Moving on to the immunity challenge, in which it was hotly contested. So Sean, those body crawl nets, I just want to mention, he used his body kind of just propping it up for players to crawl through without touching the net. That was very smart. I've never thought of that, but he's quite massive. Like I said, he's quite tall. And then in the latter part of the challenge, in which it was a puzzle, solve a phrase, I love the way they set it up too, because you have two players that are putting in blocks that don't know exactly where they should go, and you have players on the bottom telling them what to spell. But before that, you have to just put the letters in the puzzle to try to solve it and solve a phrase. And I am very, 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 very impressed with Ben's acumen and ability to solve this puzzle. It was very difficult, to be honest. If I did not know the phrase, I doubt I would have gotten it at all. And not only was he able to solve the puzzle while the villains tribe was not, he knew basic sign language, at least for the letters, and was able to sign it to Paige, who was up there, who also knows sign language. I've never seen sign language used like that in a challenge, but it proved to be very effective. And if they didn't have that, maybe they lose the challenge, to be honest, because the villains tribe would have been able to get the phrase a lot quicker, so that we pretty much see the villains tribe just copying exactly what the heroes tribe is doing. And the heroes tribe gets their last block in maybe a half second at most before the villains tribe, sending the villains tribe to tribal council after they went on their two immunity win streak. They go back to tribal council. But yeah, what a challenge. Ben, I loved it. I that was such a close challenge. Wow. Um, yeah, I loved it. So, with the villains going back to tribal council, in my mind, my estimation, it's Simon or George. Simon or George. Simon or George. Who is gonna go home? Which of these returning players is gonna bite the dust? And Simon, his plan is get out George. You have Jordy on board. You have Fraser on board. You have Stevie on board, and you have Sarah on board, who, for the most part, what we've seen has kind of been working with George, or at least not working with George, but creating a bond and hanging out with the other girls like Liz and Shawnee. And then you bring Jerry into the fold, the ninth person who could swing the vote. So rather than pinning the vote onto Simon, George decides to flip it onto the person who's flipping on him, and that is Sarah. And he has 4 votes. It seems like he did get Jerry's vote um, leading into tribal council. So I did anticipate 4 votes going on to Sarah, that being George, Jerry, Shawnee, and Liz. However, I honestly did not know what the other 5 would do. George was trying to get Stevie to flip. I didn't think Stevie was going to flip and vote Sarah in that scenario and flip on Simon. But we ended up seeing that everyone flipped it onto Sarah. It was unanimous, other than her vote. Yeah, it was very interesting travel. But another newbie down, like I mentioned. No returning player has been voted out. Yes, a returning player has left the game due to injury, and that is Jackie. And yeah, we're 6 episodes in. It's only going to get crazier. Maybe we see a tribe swap coming soon. Sounds about it would be around this time. 6 players gone, 18 players remaining. Sounds about right for what to anticipate. Yeah, I'm gonna expect some fireworks moving forward. We saw the promo at the end of the last episode. It's gonna be fireworks, so maybe. And if it's fireworks, it's probably involving George. So that wraps up the episode recap of episode 6 for Australian Survivor Heroes vs. Villains. Be sure to like the video if you're listening on YouTube, like it on Spotify. Please subscribe on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. I want you to comment down below. Do you think a returning player is voted out next episode? Or do you think the streak for new players continues? And then lastly, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Playing Voodoo Pod. We really appreciate the support. And yeah, for next week, anticipate similar schedule, not to this week, but the previous week. So I will be doing my top 5 moments of the episode following the first 2 episodes of the week, the day after. Additionally, we'll be doing a weekly recap, which will recap. I'll be doing that with Alex, which will recap episodes 1 and 2, but more so dive deep into episode 3 of the week. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And we're going to be doing US Survivor is 3 weeks out now. We're going to be doing a draft soon. Date in which we do that is to be determined. But it's going to be fun. So stay tuned for that. This is Playing Voodoo, where split vote is not safe.